Previously on the Skip and Josh Sports Show.
The bad news is we both got yesterday's game wrong.
Oh, there was a game yesterday?
The Thursday game.
God, Baltimore, Cleveland. The NFL is literally insulting all of the American people. After that election, the American people needed a good Thursday night game to distract them from everything going on in their lives that they're disappointed about. And what does the NFL do? They give them Cleveland versus Baltimore.
You're listening to the Skip and Josh Sports Show.
Hey Skip, how's it going?
Cub, everything's good.
Great.
As you know, Cub, I was in New Orleans this weekend, which is great in that I got ESPN. So I was able to see the Duke Blue Devils versus Kansas Jayhawks game the other night, which I know all you in Canada, you didn't get to watch it.
Yeah, I was very frustrated that we didn't get to see that, and I'm jealous that you did get to see it.
Yeah.
And it was like a buzzer beater game.
I was actually I was watching it at a bar for the first half, and then in the halftime I went back to the hotel and I watched the second half in my room. It was a really good game, two really good teams. It's always interesting in the beginning of the year because, you don't know all the guys, and you're kind of, as a fan, you're kind of learning who's who. I mean, we follow Duke so much, so like I knew all those guys were, but you're kind of seeing like how's Coach K gonna run the rotation, who's gonna play when. But the sad thing is he basically used, Coach K is famous these last many years for having like a super short bench. So
Yeah.
because three guys are injured, the three freshmen are injured, he used six guys the whole game.
Yeah,
There's
and the
a-
sixth guy hardly played it.
The seventh guy played 1 minute, the guy I never heard of, and the other six guys all played. But six guys, I mean, that's nothing, right?
Yeah.
And Kansas, they used their full complement of guys, and we fell behind. We played great in the last like few minutes to get a tie, to scrape to get a tie. This guy Frank Jackson hit a couple of big threes. One actually was a 4-point play. He got fouled. And then he hit another three to tie the game. But then Frank Mason, this guy in Kansas, Frank Mason the third, he just hit a. They couldn't stop him. They couldn't defend him. So wasn't really a fair test for Duke with all those injuries. And basically all those guys are big men, or they can sort of play down low. So we were handicapped in terms of what we could do on the court. We had to go small, and Chase Jeter, as much as I kind of told you that I thought he was going to have a good year, he's still I could still see why they don't have a lot of confidence in him because he has no finish.
You didn't like him last year.
No, well, I mean, he's big, he can rebound, but he doesn't have any touch around the basket. And, Grayson Allen had a horrible game. So if he's putting up shot after shot and missing shot after shot, you were in trouble. At one point he had to stop shooting, let the other guys shoot a little more because it wasn't working for him last night. But the thing is, not last night, last game. But Coach K had no one else to go to. There's only six guys on the floor that he used. So what is he gonna do, right? So Kennard had a great game. He's such an underrated player, such a great shooter. So. Anyways, we'll see how it goes. Kansas is a strong team, obviously, and
I wasn't expecting Duke to win every game.
No, I mean, and I'm kind of happy because then it's like now it just takes that whole story about they're number one, are they going to win every game, and these non-conference games, it's like beginning of the year doesn't necessarily mean anything. The team that you're using at the beginning of the year is not necessarily the team you're using at the end. It goes for both teams. So.
There have been some good games already this year. The season only tipped off a week ago, and in Honolulu, Arizona played Michigan State last week, and Indiana played Kansas.
Yeah.
And I think both those games were barn burners.
Yeah, well, they try to get these good matchups now. There's a lot of there's a lot of these preseason tournaments, even though they're not preseason games, but it's like pre-conference schedule games.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of those, and I mean Duke's always in one of them, like either the ACC Big Ten Challenge, or this thing what they were in with Kansas was called like the Championship Challenge or something. I don't know what it was called.
I think they're in the ACC Big Ten Challenge as well, though.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure, but I mean, it was a good game. Kansas is a strong team. There's no doubt.
So I was able to locate the schedule of NCAA basketball games in Canada, and so there's some good news.
Good.
The first time we're going to get to see Duke on television is November 29th, which is in about 11 days.
Yeah.
Duke's playing Tom Izzo and Michigan State.
Oh, that's in the challenge. Okay, right.
So that's going to be a good game. And then on December 6th, Florida versus Duke is going to be on TV.
That's garbage. Florida sucks.
And then a blast from the past on December 10th, Duke versus UNLV.
Oh my God. Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So those are the 3 games that we'll get to see Duke. That's just until the end of 2016. I don't know.
The rest.
The 2017 portion of the schedule has not been the television schedule. That is has not been.
CBS will usually show some games. I mean, once the college basketball really doesn't start getting televised until the Super Bowl ends. To be honest.
Exactly. Yeah.
And usually when the Super Bowl ends, the network starts showing stuff. But TSN was doing a good job last year. They showed, even TSN in their Canadian Toronto bubble understands that Duke North Carolina is a big game, and those games were on. I think at least one of them was on last year.
Yeah, and I mean, if there's a Canadian player in the NCAA playing on a good team, then
them,
TSN will show those games, like when Andrew Wiggins was on Kansas,
right,
and stuff like that.
Right.
The Skip and Josh Sports Show is back.
Just wanted to talk about a couple things. I got a new phone at work. I have a new job and I got a new phone. It's a Samsung phone and I've never used a Samsung phone before, so I'm still trying to figure out how the phone works. I was able to download the Score app, which I used to use way back in the day, but haven't been able to use it for years because my BlackBerry doesn't support the Score app anymore. That's how old my BlackBerry is. Anyhow, when you first download the app, I don't need to tell you. You can set your preferences, your favorite sport, your favorite team, your favorite player, whatever you want.
Right.
So I had set, NHL and Montreal Canadiens, and then it asks you if you want to be notified every time there's a goal and every time the game starts and every time it ends. And I was wondering, I don't know if that's going to be too many notifications, but I turned everything on just for the hell of it, just to see how it would go.
I think that was a mistake.
Well, just so happened, the first day I had the phone was the night the Canadians lost 10-0 to Columbus.
Oh, man.
So here I am getting update after update after update. I'm like, what is going on here? Like I thought, first of all, I wasn't even sure what it was because I didn't know all the sounds that my phone makes. I thought, is someone emailing me? Is someone texting me? No, it was none of that because no one even knows my number to text me. It was just all about the Columbus Blue Jackets scoring goal after goal after goal. Needless to say, after that game, I changed the settings completely, and now I get no notifications at all.
I have the Score app, and I do no notifications unless I manually, a game starts, I'll say follow this game. If I know I'm out and I can't watch and I want to know what's going on. So I do them on demand. As I need them. But the Score app's the best. And what's the best thing about the Score app? Score app, a little secret for our American listeners. It's a Canadian thing.
Yes, exactly.
Because I have my friends in New York, they have the Score app. They're like, oh, that's the best one. That's the best one. They don't even realize that the Score was some kind of fringe. They don't know it was like a fringe, TV network that got gobbled up by Rogers.
It was a TV network before it was an app.
Yeah.
And then I think the app was, I don't know if it was an afterthought or whatever, but now the network doesn't even exist anymore, but the app still does, and it's amazing.
Yeah. It's by far the best one. There's no doubt about it. Way better than anything because it's exactly what it says. It gives you the scores.
Here's another hockey thing I wanted to talk about. So this is nothing new. When there's when someone scores a hat trick, all the fans throw their hats on the ice. And I was thinking about it. I mean, I've seen it happen hundreds of times. So have you. And people who are older than us have seen it happen even more. But you think about it. These hats that people are throwing on the ice, a decent hat is at least $15. Some of them are upwards of $25 and $30, and they're just throwing them on the ice like they don't even care. Even if it was my favorite player who scored a hat trick, I would not throw my hat on the ice. So when you think about it, I can't believe how many hats get thrown on the ice when there's a hat trick? Do these people like bring these crappy hats that they don't care about and leave them in their
Oh
pocket
my god, I'm dying right
and
now.
toss them on the ice?
You don't know how many times I've thought about this.
It doesn't make sense to me. Like, would you throw your sweater on the ice? Would you throw your jacket on the ice? Would you throw your pants on the ice or your shoes? No. So why would you throw your hat? I don't get it. I just don't get it.
We know the Leafs fans will throw a sweater.
That's true. That's true.
But it's so true. I'm convinced that people bring like random hats to throw in case of a hat trick. I'm really convinced of this because, like you said, it's way too expensive. I was at a game with Matthew when he was a little kid, and someone got a hat trick, and he's like, "Throw your hat, throw your hat." I'm like, "I'm not throwing my hat. This is like my go-to hat." You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I don't get it. I'm sure either they're crazy people that just throw stuff. Maybe people get into the heat of the action. You know, but I mean, it started like back in the 20s when all the men wore hats every day, like dressy hats. Yeah, exactly. But now, I mean, it's baseball caps. Like you said, they're $25 each. I was gonna buy a hat in the airport where I was in Charlotte this weekend, and they're like $25. Like, there's no way I'm buying another hat.
Crazy. So another thing I wanted to mention, little off topic, still about hockey. You know how I was getting all the Habs games, even though they were supposed to be blacked out?
Yes, you sent me the answer. You can enlighten our listeners.
So now the last Habs game, I didn't get it. It was blacked out. So it looks like the party's over for me, unfortunately.
Oh my God! I wonder
Now,
what happened. But what happened though? Like, do you know, or is it like you said, it was like a free preview of some kind, right?
I don't think it was a free preview because they weren't promoting it. It wasn't supposed to be on. In the description on the guide, it says this game is blacked out, in southwestern Ontario, which is where I live. So
someone asleep at the switch.
Someone must have been. It must have been that.
Oh my God.
I mean, I'm still going to get all the Saturday games, so at least I'll have that. But and to be honest, the games in the middle of the week, I don't usually have time to watch them anyway.
So you have no chance. A person in Toronto who's a Habs fan cannot watch the Habs games?
Oh no! If I want to, there's a Habs package I can buy.
Okay. There is a possibility for it.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, to be honest, there's 82 games. I'm gonna get 20 to 22 games anyway, just like that.
Yeah.
And if I want the other 60 games, I can pay $60, which comes out to $1 a game, not a big deal, and I get them all.
Right.
But the truth is, half the time I'm playing hockey or I'm out, so I'm gonna miss the game anyway. So there's no point in getting the package.
Now you have the Score app. You just have to turn on the notifications for every game you need, and then bing, 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 bing. You're gonna know what's going on.
Exactly.
Hi there, Skip and Josh will be right back. To get in touch with them, you can send them an email to skipandjoshshow@gmail.com. You can follow them on Twitter @skipandjosh, and you can visit their website at www.skipandjosh.com. And now, back to the show.
Keep coming at me, rapid fire.
Yeah, rapid fire.
Just to tell the listeners, we don't script anything on this show.
No. In fact, I refuse to talk to you now during the week because if we talk about things, then it just doesn't come out good when we do the show.
Right. So, like, when we started today, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about, and you told me, don't worry, I got a list.
I do have a list. I'm pretty much only halfway through the list. Listen. I know you're going to want to talk about. I'm not sure what to do next. I know you want to talk about the baseball awards that were handed out this week.
I do, yes.
I guess the first one that was handed out was Rookie of the Year, of course, AL and NL.
Yeah.
So Corey Seager won in the National League.
He was the most obvious choice. The guy was nominated for MVP. So it was pretty clear he was going to be Rookie of the Year.
Right, and I have no issue with that. Yeah. And in the American League, it was Michael Fulmer.
I never heard of him until he won the award.
Exactly. Neither did I. And this is how much we know about sports on this show.
I did hear of him before, only because that guy Gary Sanchez on the Yankees, when he started hitting home runs basically in August and September, and they were talking about him like he's going to be Rookie of the Year. I'm like, this guy's going to be Rookie of the Year. He's going to only have played a month. But and then I started to read articles about who the other rookies were and everything. So I kind of knew what was going on.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Gary Sanchez. He had a great 2 months, but it was just 2 months.
Yeah.
And in the National League, Trey Turner had a great 4 months, but it was just 4 months.
My boss, who's a Yankees fan, diehard, is very realistic about Gary Sanchez. Yeah, he thinks he's great, but he's also realizing like he's not going to be like a super. There's no way he can do what he's done so far. It has to be, it has to come back to the mean, as they say, So
the Cy Young Award, and this one I want to spend a little more time on. So in the National League, it was Max Scherzer, and a lot of people thought it'd be John Lester. And in the American League,
Porcello,
right, Porcello, and a lot of people thought it should be Justin Verlander.
especially his girlfriend.
Yes, well, this is what I wanted to talk about. In case you guys don't follow Kate Upton on Twitter, you should.
I do follow her on Twitter, yes, and Instagram.
There you go. Instagram's probably better than Twitter.
No, she posts the same stuff.
For those who don't know, and I can't say the full tweet on the air, but
we need to maintain. Oh my God, it's crazy! I can't believe we don't. If we talk during the week, we wouldn't be able to do this show.
No, that's exactly it. So anyway, this is why I didn't even text you anything about this during the week.
We need to we want to keep our explicit rating on iTunes off. We don't want to be known as explicit, so we can't really say what she said.
I'm not going to say any words that you're not supposed to say, but I'll just read. And this tweet was actually posted on ESPN and TSN.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I'm not doing anything, whatever. Basically, obviously, a lot of people thought that Justin Verlander got screwed and he should have won the Cy Young. And there were two baseball writers that didn't even put Verlander on their ballot at all. I can understand maybe you don't think he's the best pitcher, but you must think he's one of the top 5.
Yeah.
So Kate Upton tweets, "Hey MLB, I thought I was the only person allowed to bleep Justin Verlander. What 2 writers didn't have him on their ballot?" Anyway, it was hilarious. I thought it was one of the funniest tweets I've ever seen in my life.
It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
So,
what she doesn't know is that MLB has nothing to do with it. So tweeting to MLB doesn't change anything because it's the Baseball Writers of America, and it's really nothing to do with actual Major League Baseball. So,
but she did add what 2 writers didn't have him on their ballot, so she knew.
You know who votes for these things, the baseball writers. Some of these guys are degenerate nobodies.
Yeah.
Some guy who's been following the Detroit, I shouldn't say the Detroit Tigers because then he would vote for Verlander, but someone who's been following the Kansas City Royals since 1967, who's retired, he's still a baseball writer of America. He still has a vote. So some of his voting doesn't always make sense, and you don't even know if half the guys are following what's going on, which clearly they're not. So it's funny because there's such we talked about in the other episodes, in your What Bugs Me, you mentioned they have to pick a guy in a winning team, and how come it's always guys from winning teams? In this case, what really bothers me about the Cy Young voting is that I thought that the guys who follow baseball would be more educated and they wouldn't be blinded by the won-loss record, because clearly Porcello won because he had those 22. He was 22-6. The won-loss record just blinded everybody, even though Verlander had way better numbers, and actually Porcello I saw all the stats. He had practically 2 runs per game more of run support. If Verlander had the run support that Porcello had, he'd also been 22-6.
Yeah, you don't need to. I think you know exactly how I feel about won-loss records. You can throw out the win-loss record. You can throw it out the window. It doesn't matter to me. That's really just an indication of the team that you're on. Porcello was on the Red Sox. I don't think any team in the majors had a better offense than the Red Sox. So clearly you're going to get a lot of wins pitching on that team. In fact, there was a game in the last week of the season. It was an important game for the Tigers. Verlander lost 1-0. He pitched great in that game, but he lost 1-0. So the win-loss record doesn't even matter to me. ERA matters, WHIP matters, strikeouts matter. Those are the things that I look at in a pitcher when I'm deciding who the best pitcher is.
WHIP is huge. I mean, for me, that's the biggest indicator. So
I'm just on the I'm on ESPN.com, and I noticed something. It's a little off topic, but I'm at the MLB homepage, and when you click on the drop-down menus on ESPN.com, you can have scores or schedule or standings or stats, just like you would for any sport. But at the top of the menu on ESPN.com, the first thing they have there is called Cubs full coverage.
Still, 2 weeks later after the World Series is over, they're still.
But I mean, I don't think they've ever done that for any team.
No. Well, ESPN has local, so there's ESPN Chicago, ESPN LA, ESPN Boston, but this is the ESPN, the national, right?
The national one, yes.
Yeah, it's crazy. All the Cubs fans have come out of the woodwork.
Exactly.
There was 3 million. How many people? There was 3 million, diehard Cubs fans at the beginning of the year, and now there's 10 million.
There you go.
Right now that they won.
So we didn't talk about manager of the year, and
No, you want
in
to
the
talk about
American League
that?
was Terry Francona. In the National League, it was not as everyone thought, Joe Madden.
No, it wasn't.
It was Dave Roberts. And after thinking about it, to be honest, I don't think Joe Madden should have won because he did have the best roster. He did have the best lineup.
But isn't that why he should have won?
No, I think
He had the
you
best record.
yes, but what to me I look for in a manager is a manager that can exceed expectations.
Yeah, but
So take a
expectations
team,
are bogus. Expectations are just in your mind.
no, but
Expectations
if
is
you
like
for example, sorry to cut you off, but those years where Felipe Alou was the manager of the Expos and they had not the greatest roster, but he somehow was able to get them into contention.
I agree
Now they
with
didn't
that.
win,
No, I
but they
understand.
they contended. That to me was a great performance by a manager who actually made the team gain some wins that they would not have otherwise had with a
No,
different
that,
manager.
I understand that, but the Expos had like a $5 payroll. The Dodgers have a payroll that's bigger than some GDP of some countries.
You're right. You're right. But they did, in fairness to Dave Roberts, you're absolutely right. They did have quite a few injuries. I mean, Clayton
did.
Kershaw was out for I think 2 months.
Yeah,
They had the whole Yasiel Puig,
fiasco. Yeah,
fiasco exactly, where he was sent down then called back up. So there were things in LA. You're right. They do have a big
I think
thing.
they were
So-
all deserving Well, I mean, I don't respect Dusty Baker as a manager, to be honest. He has no idea how to use his pitchers. Like he's never learned and he never will. But like I think Roberts, Madden. I don't really care that much. I don't take a lot of stock. I don't pay attention to the manager of the year awards because like you said, it's always about who's exceeded expectations. But like my thing is like, well, who sets the expectations? Just because one person says the team's going to be bad doesn't mean that, and another team thinks the team is going to be good. It doesn't mean anything. The games are played on the field, right? So, anyways, too bad for Joe Madden. It doesn't matter. Who cares?
So I think the last award, the only
MVP.
one we didn't talk about is MVP, and
It's-
in a previous episode
Yeah.
I talked about what bugs me. So no surprise, Chris Bryant won the MVP in the National League. I happen to disagree with that. And what I don't get is if you are only going to pick players on teams that contended, well then why did Mike Trout win the AL MVP?
I swear, when I saw the voting, I was like, what's going on here? Like, if the same guy is voting for Bryant and Trout, which obviously many people did, right?
Hmm.
I just don't get it. It's like, is there a thought process? Like, either are you voting for, like you said, are you voting because you're on a winning team or not? Or are you voting on traditional stats like Bryant has? Because Trout is like the darling of the analytics, right? He's like that stat WAR, right? Wins above replacement. So
Yeah.
I mean, he's like one of the all-time leaders in WAR in history, and he's led the league in WAR. I think every year he's been practically in the league, or he's in the top three, and he did it again this year, and they gave him the MVP again this year, even though his team sucked. Honestly, I don't get the MVP voting. I just don't get it.
Like, I don't have a problem with Trout. In fact,
Me
I
too.
kind of agree. If he has the best numbers, I don't care what team he played on. I don't care what their record was. Give him the MVP.
I was shocked when he won.
I'm just looking. I'm looking at the National League, the breakdown of all the National League. Chris Bryant won. Daniel Murphy was second. Corey Seager, who was a rookie, was third. I'm looking for Nolan Arenado, who I thought should have won,
He was way down.
was fifth.
Yeah.
There were two Cubs ahead of him.
Yeah, as soon as I saw those results, I was like, oh my God, I don't get it.
So
We'll never get it. Like I
No,
said, the
I'll never
baseball
understand.
writers are clueless sometimes.
I'll never understand.
Yeah.
The Skip and Josh Sports Show. They don't take your calls.
Let's talk a little bit football, unless you have any other baseball stuff.
Football was a great week of football. Honestly, what a great we've been trashing NFL, not trashing, but we've been a little bit down on the NFL the way the season's been going so far. It hasn't been the most exciting, but this week really brought out a lot of amazing games. Now let me tell you something. I was in New Orleans this weekend. First of all, every time I'm in New Orleans, there's a game, right? So either the Saints are playing, or if the Saints are not playing, there's LSU playing. So it's New Orleans is a very small town, right? It's not big. It's not as big as you think. It's only like 400,000 people. So you could walk everywhere. So when you're out in the city, all you see is Saints jerseys everywhere. Saints jerseys. But this weekend, all we saw everywhere was the bright orange Denver Broncos jerseys. They were everywhere. Those Broncos fans, everywhere. And the way the game ended was just crazy with that crazy block kick. Like the Saints fans were ready to kill themselves.
Yeah, there were a lot of really good endings to games, and good games. You know, you obviously had New England versus Seattle, and you had Dallas versus Pittsburgh.
That was crazy, that New England Seattle, how it comes down to the last play again. You know, like right at the goal line. I was shocked that they didn't score. The Patriots. You know, Seattle's a good team. You know, I have you know, made it clear my dislike for that team, but I mean they are a good team.
I have a bigger dislike for New England, so I'm happy
You
that
do?
Seattle. Yeah, I can't stand the Patriots.
Oh my God, what's
Well,
wrong with the
well,
Patriots? All they do is win.
Yeah, but I can't stand Bill Belichick. He's just a jerk.
He is. There's no doubt he's a jerk. He only gets away with half the stuff he does because, you know, he's won. You know, no one else can get away with that, to be honest. You know.
On to Cincinnati.
Yeah, well, all he said was Seattle.
Yeah.
Seattle.
So sticking with football for a little bit still, what frustrates me, this isn't the what bugs me segment, but what frustrates me, and I think you'll agree, I've got Rob Gronkowski on my fantasy team.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm ever going to have him on my fantasy team again because
He takes a
you might think he's the best tight end in the league. He might still be the best tight end in the league.
Not when he plays 10 games.
Right. So he's injured again, so I can't use him. Doesn't really matter. My team's pretty much out of it anyway. And I know you had him on your team last year, and when you really needed him in the finals against me, he didn't play.
I had a good strategy last year. I had a really, really good strategy. I had Brady and Gronkowski, right? I had them all year. And I rode that wave last year, all year. So, you know, when they're throwing touchdowns or when they're putting up numbers, I'm racking up, like, I'm double dipping on those touchdowns, you know, all year, running up the scores. And then, like you said, when I really needed them, I went to that well once too often last year.
Yeah. So anyway, my fantasy season is pretty much over.
Me too.
I think yours is also.
What the most frustrating thing about fantasy last week is, so I haven't really paid attention to Mark's team, right? I haven't paid attention to it that much because, you know, I'm like, yeah, I'm involved in this, but I'm not like heavily invested in my fantasy football team. So he's 10-0, right?
Yeah.
His team sucks. I don't understand how he's 10-0. He's like, when he drafted it, you know, he has Marcus Mariota as his quarterback. There's no way he thought Marcus Mariota was going to be doing like what he's doing, right? There's
First of all,
no way.
before you even go on, was he even at the draft, or did he just let the computer pick his team?
I think he was at the draft. Honestly,
Okay.
I don't remember. I wasn't at the draft.
That's right. You let your son make your picks.
Yeah, that was obviously.
I guess that's
a
the
whole
last
other
time you're gonna do
conversation.
that.
That's what bugs me for another day.
Okay.
No, he actually picked the guys I wanted him to pick. But like, I just don't understand his team and like why it's doing so well. He's really, really got lucky with Marcus Mariota, and like, it's just all falling into place, you know. And then he picked up DeMarco Murray. No one wanted him, and he's having a great year. So he's riding this Tennessee Titans wave somehow, you know. Last week he destroyed me because of those two guys. Destroyed me. You know what the score was in that game last week?
I actually don't remember.
It was
I can go look at it.
145 to 84.
That's a destruction.
Yeah. So I was pretty much out of it after 5 minutes into the 1 o'clock games, and that was that. Good thing I was like on a business trip and I wasn't like following the games. Like I wasn't in front of the TV following all the games, but you know, I would have. I just kind of looked at the score. I was like, okay, I lost. That was it.
I eked out a win against Book, 79-78. He wasn't happy.
1 point. How did you do that?
Well, because in the Sunday night game, I had LeGarrette Blount, who got 24 points.
So you were down by 23 points going into the Sunday night?
I wasn't down by 23. I was down.
Yeah.
He also had New England defense that actually didn't play well at all.
Right.
So that helped me also. And I had Gronkowski, who really didn't do much that game.
Well, we'll have Book on next week, and he can complain about it.
Yes, exactly. I mean, he's going to make the playoffs, so it's not really going to matter to him.
Yeah, I know. I think you and you are pretty much out of it, so I don't know if we probably this may be the last time we talk about fantasy football this year.
It might be, but I want to mention the Pigskin Pick'em because
I did well.
You did well. This is the first time that you beat me. You had 9 correct.
Yeah.
I had 7 out of 14. So I was 500, but you were way above 500.
That's good.
You
And I actually put a lot of thought into my picks this week.
You never do, though, I thought.
No, I thought about it a little bit more. So instead of spending like 3 seconds on a pick, I spend like 5 seconds on a pick.
Okay.
So that's a lot of thought. That's like 40% more.
It is. And in week 11, we both got the Thursday game right.
Oh, we're on fire.
So we're on fire already in week 11. And I know you had touched on this earlier. We were talking about the NFL, how exciting the games were and everything. The ratings, both in Canada and the United States, were great last week. And I think I read somewhere where Fox, they made up 50% of their downfall last week alone.
Yeah, well, now they're the only game in town, right? It just goes to show the Cubs were a big factor in the lower ratings, and I think the presidential election as well.
For sure.
So I mean, they're gonna ride it from here to the end now, So.
I mean, it helps when there's good games and they're close games and they go down to the wire for sure.
Yeah.
That certainly helps the ratings.
There's some decent games this week, but nothing. Nothing huge, The best game actually was yesterday, the Saints-Panthers. That was the best matchup I watched to the end.
That was a good game?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are two decent teams. It was like what Bill Simmons calls a winner-go-home game. So, like, both teams are basically fighting for their life, and the Saints are in big trouble now, and the Panthers may have kept themselves alive with the win. So.
You're listening to Skip and Josh Sports Show.
So do we want to do a What Bugs Me this week?
Yes, let's do a What Bugs Me.
You're kidding me? Boy, are you bugging me, man. I'm gonna nail. Ooh, God. I'm getting bugged now. Whoa, man.
All right, so what bugs me this week, and this actually happens in football and in basketball, but more so in football. So it's close to the end of the first half, let's say. And it doesn't matter if it's a tie game or one team's up by a touchdown or down by a touchdown or whatever it is. There's enough time to run another play, maybe even enough time to run 2 plays. But the team just basically lets the clock run out and walk off the field. And actually the clock's still going and they're like already in the locker room. And it's usually because, they might be at their own 20 or their own 30-yard line and they figure we only have 1 play left. What are we going to do? There's no point. Let's just go into the locker room. Why don't they throw a Hail Mary? What do you have to lose? I mean, even if the guy drops it or it's incomplete or who cares, so what? But if it's complete, you might get a touchdown going into the half. Is that a bad thing?
They're too worried about like a fumble or a bad snap or something that's going to really screw up the game. But I'm with you 100%. It's really frustrating to watch. That's like ultra conservative coaches, right? And there's so many of them, right? There's so many of them.
It seems like all of them. I never see any coach running a play with 10 seconds left
rare.
or 15 seconds left in the half. You have plenty of time.
My son hates it bugs him as much as it bugs you, because anytime we're watching a game and they're not trying to run some plays right before the half, he's like, I don't understand. Why don't they throw the ball? Why don't they try to get the ball downfield? They're just at 2 plays and they can be in field goal range. 1 play they could. Why not? He can't understand. He looks at the NFL almost as if it's the same as playing Madden on PlayStation. So,
which is a good way to look at it.
100%. He's like, you can do it he goes, if I'm playing Madden, I'm throwing the ball up here. I don't care what happens, So, I don't know. Who knows? These guys, the difference is that the coaches are making a lot of money and they are all scared to get fired. So, because of that, you play conservative. Why do you think there's so many defensive-minded coaches in hockey? The guys are paid to win. How do you win games? You don't let the other team score, right?
Which is why I like Jack Del Rio, because he goes for 2.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's crazy. It's just unbelievable.
Good for him for not being so conservative.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I got nothing else. Do you have anything else? I'm going to see you tomorrow.
That's right. I am going to see you tomorrow. And funny enough, we can't record a show when we're in the same city. We have to be in different cities because we don't know how to.
We don't know how.
We don't know how to record a show if we're in the same room.
We'd figure it out, I'm sure. I'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for a great show.
Okay, cool.
The Skip and Josh Sports Show is over now. Don't worry, there'll be another episode soon.